Welcome everyone to the Sponsor CX webinar, Strategy, Scale, and Impact, how Gainbridge is building a modern sponsorship portfolio. We're going to look at does it take to build one of the most respected sponsorship portfolios in sports today, and that's what we're going to find out from our guest. So welcome Stephen Anderson, Senior Manager of Sports Sponsorships at Group 1001. Stephen's going to take us inside the strategy behind Gainbridge's expansive and growing partnership ecosystem. We'll unpack how the brand aligns all of these diverse assets under a unified business objective while balancing brand growth with meaningful community impact. That's a lot. So I hope you're all ready. Hope you're all buckled in. Really looking forward to a great conversation. Stephen, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Yeah, appreciate it, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, let me give you all a little background on Stephen before we dive in. So in his role, he leads strategy and activation for the entitlement sponsorship of the Gainbridge Super League, which hopefully all of you know is a Division I professional women's soccer league, part of the USL here in the US. He also contributes to strategy and activation across the full portfolio, and it is a large one. We'll talk about some of those specific things, I'm sure, but that includes the Indy 500, Formula One, Miami Grand Prix, the Gainbridge Fieldhouse, which is of course home to the Indiana Pacers and the Indiana Fever and other properties as well. So, really a lot of exciting stuff going on. But before joining Group 1001, just about a year ago, a little over a year ago now, is that right, Stephen?
Correct.
He's had a number of different partnership and sponsorship leadership roles. Most recently Golden State Warriors, Amazon, Minnesota Vikings before that. So he's got experience obviously on both sides of the industry. So he brings a really practical perspective to us on all of this great stuff: sponsorship strategy, portfolio management, and most importantly, building partnerships that create long-term business value. So why don't we start the discussion? Stephen, we talked about you. Let's talk a little bit about the business. Tell us kind of what we need to know about Group 1001 and Gainbridge. As I said, it's certainly Gainbridge is a name that I think all of us are familiar with now because of that portfolio. I think I was first exposed to it with my connections years ago with Andretti Global, which was one of an early sponsorship for the company. So yeah, tell us about the company.
Yeah, well, again, appreciate the time, and I'm happy to represent Gainbridge and my teammates on our sponsorship team. So tell you a little bit about Group 1001. So we're an American insurance and financial services company based in Zionsville, Indiana. So it's a suburb of Indianapolis, Indiana. And so under Group 1001, which is kind of the parent company for Gainbridge, our sports community partnerships, we focus on two of the businesses under Group 1001. And I know for today's conversation, we'll mainly focus on Gainbridge. So a little more about Gainbridge is a financial services company that can help you and your family save your money through annuities. So that's kind of our main focus for Gainbridge. And it's a direct-to-consumer company. So you may be familiar with annuities a little bit, but usually you'd have to go through your own financial advisor to have an annuity as part of your overall savings portfolio. But at Gainbridge, we make it very easy. You can go to Gainbridge.com and make your investment there. So that is why when you see Group 1001, especially our sports sponsorships, that Gainbridge is kind of the brand that leads there, because we're a direct-to-consumer company, and that's how we kind of interact with fans and potential consumers going forward.
Wonderful. So, yeah, and obviously we're probably all familiar with different types of financial services taking advantage of partnerships. We know that the great things that sports and entertainment partnerships can do for a business such as yours, and and a brand that is, it's hard to say emerging anymore. You've been around now for a while, but still one that it's not a 100-year-old company. It's a little newer than that. So helping to kind of establish the brand as well as educate people on what they do. So, that makes a lot of sense. So, again, kind of my biggest question for you, the thing that when I look at Gainbridge and all that's going on is, again, it's such a large and diverse sponsorship portfolio. So what is the strategy, behind that diversity across, from motorsports to women's sports, golf to basketball, and soccer and everything in between? Can tell us just a little bit about the different goals and objectives for those partnerships?
Yeah, kind of our North Star is, we believe, Group 1001 in Gainbridge, that education and sports have the power to uplift and change communities. So that leads kind of our partnership strategy. And then kind of our leadership team at Gainbridge, consisting of our president and CEO, Dan Towris, and then ahead of our sponsorship team, Mike Nichols. They put a lot of, when we're looking at partnership opportunities, a lot of focus on ownership of partnerships. And so that comes, that shows up in a few different ways. So first, we kind of already talked about what I oversee here at Gainbridge, which is our entitlement partnership of the Gainbridge Super League. We also have the naming rights to Gainbridge Fieldhouse, like you said, where the Pacers and Fever play. We're the presenting sponsor of the Indy 500. And we have several other event presenting sponsorships as well. So we like to be a partner that's fully invested in the opportunities that we invest in. So that's kind of a really big part to drive our portfolio. We don't look to be just one of many partners of a company or league or an event. We really want to put ourselves forward and really have a strong investment in the league, team, or event that we're part of. And then, of course, we want our partnerships to lead back to our business goals and objectives, as any company or partner would want. So, of course, at Gainbridge, our main focus is driving new customers, new sales of annuities, and making sure we're retaining and growing our current customer base. So that's how we try to set up, our partnership assets that we have within our partnerships. And then, of course, the ownership of these events allows us kind of a broad range of opportunities to hit on our sponsorship and business goals and objectives.
One thing I should have mentioned when we're talking about the company and the business that you're in is, I would imagine with annuities, the target group for who you're trying to reach is probably pretty broad. Am I right in terms of age and demographics and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, usually I think traditionally annuities have been for those soon to be retired. So as you're looking towards retirement, it's kind of a savings vehicle for retirement, but we're trying to work to kind of reframe that, where we want people to look at Gainbridge for savings for those upcoming life events, especially ones that you do kind of younger in age, whether it's planning to buy your first home or a car, or saving for your child's education. So though that's kind of how we're trying to frame. We're still trying to hit, of course, our maybe base demographic of those that are saving for retirement, but we also want to have opportunities to welcome in kind of that younger generation, those young adults that are saving for those kind of larger life events upcoming. So that's what you'll start to see on Gainbridge.com and how we look to market ourselves in the marketplace with our different sponsorships, is again looking to get to that younger demographic.
Yeah. So in terms of the partnerships, then a lot of times we talk about the purchase funnel, right? And we talk about how partnerships can kind of hit different stages of that. It creates awareness of brands at the top, but then plenty of examples of sponsors who have done very well at kind of driving the ultimate, whether it's a sale or whatever the behavior is. Is that similar at Gainbridge too? Are you trying to hit different parts of that funnel, or is there an emphasis on one part or another?
Yeah, great point. So Gainbridge as a company is less than a decade old. So as we're talking about our comparisons in the financial services category. There are a lot of legacy companies out there that have been around a lot longer. So I think our leadership team and our current team has done a great job on the brand awareness side. I think when people see the name Gainbridge and can usually recognize our logo. So I think brand awareness, we've done a really good job. So we're kind of going to that next step is to consideration. And that's more of, people see Gainbridge, but do they understand what our business is? Do they understand what we do and what our main product is? Again, annuities, and it's a simple, safe way to save your money. Those are kind of the things we're trying to get across in our partnerships going forward. Again, we've done a great job of brand awareness. We're in a lot of parts of the United States, so I think we have that covered. But it's going to that next level. How do we make sure that fans and potential future customers of Gainbridge understand who Gainbridge is and what we offer?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Let me mention to everyone too. It's like that, that's been great background and appreciate that. I've got some more questions that I want to ask Stephen, but we really want to encourage you all to take the opportunity, since he's joined us here, to ask your questions directly of him. So just make sure if you look on the right side of your screens, there is that Q&A tab. That's the best place to type in your questions. I'll be monitoring that. I might take some as they come in. I might save some till later, depending. But go ahead, if you think of a question that you want to ask, go ahead and type it in at any time. We'd love to hear from you. So, first thing that comes to mind again for me, Stephen, and especially in relation to our friends at Sponsor CX and what they do. You're talking about a lot of inventory and relationship management that's needed across all of the different partnerships that Gainbridge has. So can you talk a little bit about, just from like a personnel and an operations perspective, how does Group 1001 and Gainbridge manage all that? It's not just you and Mike, I assume, doing it all, but I'm sure there's a bigger team there. Can you just tell us a little bit about the behind the scenes there?
Yeah, definitely have a great team that I have a privilege to work with. So each of us on our team is responsible for different parts of our sponsorship business. So again, I have a strong focus in our soccer portfolio and also get to help support on larger events and some day-to-day strategy across the rest of our portfolio. But each of our team members has their own specific responsibility that they're responsible for. So they will use kind of the best communications and system for managing the inventory and strategy for the partnerships that they oversee. So directly, we don't have a specific inventory management tool that we use, but we do have kind of systems in place on our team for tracking to make sure we're delivering on all of the assets. And my manager has a great term called sweating the assets. So making sure we're getting as much out of our assets as we can. So we have kind of an internal strategy to make sure we're staying up to speed on the deadlines, the strategy behind everything, and then of course the execution.
Yeah. I might have to steal that. I like that phrase a lot, because that really is what it's all about, right? It's like, boy, if you're, and we've all seen examples of it, right, where you bought all of this stuff and you paid good money for it, and it's like so often it's like it doesn't all get utilized, and it's like, boy, that's a shame when that happens. And sweating the assets, I really like that one. You actually, the Gainbridge portfolio and program has won some industry awards, kind of sponsor of the year, which is fantastic, and congratulations. To me personally, I believe the reason why you are getting those kinds of accolades is this is a really tough thing to do. You've really struck a really good balance between brand building, as you've been talking about, but also making that commitment to communities and important platforms. And particularly the one that comes to mind is parity in women's sports. that again, that's not easy. You just don't flip a switch and that happens. So could you talk about that a little bit? And is there maybe like a key to how you, as a company, have really been able to successfully balance all of that?
Yeah, our leadership has definitely invested strongly in both our community partnerships and also more specifically in women's sports. And so over 40% of our sponsorship investment across all of our properties is within women's sports. So that's definitely higher than the national average, and it's something we're very proud of. And we also, in addition to the specific leagues and teams that are in women's sports, we also have a great roster of Gainbridge ambassadors. You may be familiar with the woman, Caitlin Clark, here in Indiana.
I think I've heard of her, yeah.
But also other legends across sports that we sponsor as well. So Brianna Scurry, who is a two-time Olympic gold medalist and FIFA Women's World Cup champion, specifically on the 99ers, was a goalkeeper there. And then Annika Sorenstam, women's golf legend, and then Billie Jean King as well. So we're able to use their, recognizability, their status to help uplift our program. So you'll see them kind of sprinkled across our portfolio as well. And then to more specifically touch on our community partnerships. So we're really excited about those. And one specific program that we work with Parity on is called Gainbridge Assist, powered by Parity. And so every year we offer and recognize nonprofit organizations that are within the women's sports and education space. And so we provide them with $5,000 grants, which is kind of paying homage to Billie Jean King and the Women's Sports Foundation. And Billie Jean King started the Women's Sports Foundation with a $5,000 grant. So we have a great relationship with her and her foundation. And so we're going into its fourth year. And so in the first 3 years of the Gainbridge Assist program, we've been able to provide grants close to almost totaling $700,000. And so these are organizations across the United States that, again, are focused in women's sports and education. And so that's just, again, showing that not only do we, of course, drive towards our business goals, but community partnerships are part of that. It's making sure that we are supporting these organizations that are doing great work in their communities and helping to uplift them. And I think, within women's sports, continuing to show that strong investment there is core to what we do on our sponsorship team.
Absolutely. And this is what I saw before we went live today. You were just talking about your experience up here in Chicago this past weekend for the W All-Star, and just how much that has grown. You can just share a little bit with what you were sharing with me, because I unfortunately was out of town and missed most of it. But that experience, from a business perspective of the networking and all that.
Yeah, it was fun to be up in Chicago for WNBA All-Star just a few days ago. WNBA All-Star the previous year was hosted here in Indianapolis and Gainbridge Courthouse, so that was a lot of fun. But yeah, this past weekend, I feel like W All-Star is changing more from a focus on the All-Star game and kind of the league events, the three-point shooting contests and those events, to more of a gathering of leaders across sports and entertainment for networking and socialization. Over the 3 or 4 day All-Star weekend, your schedule can be packed with opportunities to catch up with friends, coffee chats, to specific networking events, to parties and other social gatherings to kind of end the night. So it was fun being there. It's event for not only W League partners, but you then see other companies try and come in and try to cut into some of that fun as well. So it is one of those kind of events that's just continuing to grow and seeing investment again in women's sports and in the WNBA overall is really fun to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's just we keep seeing examples of the importance of that. That's one is hit home when I'm looking at the events. I was getting invitations to being up here, and it just was like, this is, we always talk about Super Bowl weekend and NBA All-Star weekend as being these kind of gatherings for not just the sports, but the sports business, right? And not just the people that are involved in that particular league or sport, but everybody. And it's like, wow, I mean, that this event now has become becoming one of those tent poles, which is so great to see. So we're getting some great questions coming in, and a couple of them have a similar theme, and it was a question that I was going to ask too as well. So Stephen, so let me jump to that, and basically it's a question that always comes up whenever we talk about sponsorships. One of my favorites. So basically, what are you looking at in terms of how do you measure success or evaluate performance, whatever terminology we want to put on that? Are there specific metrics that you're looking at to evaluate the success of all of these different deals?
Yeah, I would say, again, with each of our partners, we want to, at the beginning of the year, as we're going through the recap and setting up for the next year, the partnership, is to talk through what our goals are for the upcoming year, so that at the beginning of the year we can establish those, and as we're talking about our strategy for how we're going to implement our assets and execute them, we can always have these 3 or 4 bullet points about what our goals are to kind of lean back on. And as we're talking about measuring success, that is kind of our North Star, those goals that we set out again at the beginning of the year. As I briefly talked about towards the beginning, we have done a great job with brand awareness. So as you're thinking about what are some of those kind of more strategic assets that help drive brand awareness, we still want those. Again, as you can see with some of our ownership of our different leagues and teams. But again, as our business is maturing and we're trying to get our customers or potential customers to understand what Gainbridge does, I think we're now looking towards, more storytelling, more how do we get fans to understand who Gainbridge is, what our products do, and again, how our products can help them kind of save for the future. So that's kind of how we're looking to, measure success, how we think about measuring success, and then how our assets help kind of, stack on top of that towards, our partnership goals and strategies. So I don't maybe have necessarily a direct answer to what we are looking for to measure success, because each partnership is a little different and why we've signed that partner is a little different. But I think holistically, as we move down the marketing funnel towards consideration and what Gainbridge offers, I think that is helping us to kind of figure out how we measure success in each partnership.
Yeah, perfectly said. And I think for me, the important to kind of take away from what you were just talking about is what you said right up front. It's like at either, renewal time, or if it's a first time deal, before you sign that contract, you're having that conversation with the property so that they understand this is what we are, where we are. And it's multiple objectives. It's not just one thing, but that conversation is so important, and keeping that communication open, because we all know in this business, objectives change, specific or some market conditions come in that say, okay, now for the next 3 months, we need to be focusing here, and then we'll go back to something else, and all of that kind of stuff. And it's just, so important that, properties are very, I think, open to having that conversation, to wanting to be measured, basically, and say, hold us to a standard, because we know that, hopefully we have the confidence in the assets and everything that we're delivering, that it is going to be, deliver that return on investment. So we know that that's what leads to renewals, right? It's when you don't have those things in place and nobody's really paying attention to those specifics. It's too easy for the brand at the end of a year or 3 years or wherever it is to say, I'm not really sure what this is doing. Let's try something else. So yeah, we love that measurement conversation for sure.
Yeah, and hopefully that leads to, whether it's during the year of the partnership or if it's a multi-year deal, our business is changing, our partner's business is changing and their goals. So even year over year, being flexible to changing what the assets are in the deal. Maybe it's nothing huge, taking a suite away before adding a suite, but it could be, a changing of assets. Maybe you've been sponsoring a team's fan festival, maybe it's switching to a community event. So just being flexible year in and year out to see what's working, and then also being able to pivot based on the business needs of us as a sponsor or the property, our partners on the league or team side.
Yeah, flexibility. So, and again, on both sides, certainly, a lot of brands kind of put that pressure on their property partners to be flexible because they need that. But it's great to, that you're thinking about it also from your side of things, that, hey, the property's needs and situations are going to change too. So we need to be able to adapt to that. Speaking of that, and again, because you've got so many of the different relationships there that you've kind of touched some more deeply than others. Do you have any examples of maybe some of the partners that you're working with who are really doing a good job of helping Gainbridge kind of maximize the value of the relationship? And are there specific things that they're doing?
Yeah, I would say one of the really creative things that we do here at Gainbridge, that I think is maybe our superpower or things you don't always see in the industry, is when our partners are open to us being able to provide added value and added opportunities, when we're able to integrate some of our other sponsors in our portfolio into their own partnership. So for one example, we are a founding partner of the Miami F1 Grand Prix that happens around Hard Rock Stadium every year. And so this year, we were really trying to figure out, we have an activation space on the side of the track. Last year, we did a kind of a more integrated opportunity for people to come and play kind of not tennis, but kind of a smaller court around there. So with FIFA World Cup being played at Hard Rock Stadium and our relationship with the Gainbridge Super League, we wanted to find a way to potentially build a mini soccer pitch on the side of the Miami F1 track, where fans could come and really us lean into the excitement around Miami for the upcoming World Cup games that will be played at Hard Rock Stadium. So we worked with our partners over at USL and also Miami F1 Grand Prix to build a soccer pitch. And so across the 5-6 days of activities around the track, we had thousands of fans come up and participate in our activation. We hosted a few of our Gainbridge ambassadors. Brianna Scurry came. We had a few players from some of the Gainbridge Super League teams that we sponsor come and participate as well. And so it was just a great way for us to integrate one of our other partners into Miami F1 and leaning into what has become, the event of the year, maybe in the Men's World Cup. Secondly, I would say a great example is what we actually won for the 2025 Brand Activation of the Year, which is when through our partnership with the Annika, which is an LPGA tournament that we have the presenting sponsorship of, that happens every year, every November down in Tampa. Partnered with them and also Caitlin Clark. And so we brought Caitlin in to participate in the Pro-Am, and we're able to kind of integrate her into different aspects of the tournament there. And of course, anytime you have Caitlin or can have her participate, that draws a great crowd and also great media opportunities and just great coverage for Gainbridge and the tournament and women's golf overall with the LPGA as well. So what I love is how our team at Gainbridge really thinks creatively on how we can maximize our full portfolio and not just kind of have blinders on of, okay, this is a golf tournament, so everything has to focus on golf. This is a F1 race. Okay, everything has to be F1. Where we know that fans that attend these different events have interests outside of just the main sport that's being played there. So for Gainbridge, how can we integrate in a really thoughtful and tasteful way our other partners across our portfolio? So I think that's a key that we're able to do and something that's special here at Gainbridge.
Yeah, no, that's again one of the benefits of having a multifaceted portfolio is being able to leverage those different assets and one at another. And I assume then that was something that was open. So when you come to when you're talking to the folks at the Miami Grand Prix and say, hey, we want to bring USL in to help us with an activation, that they're open to them and help again, whether we call it flexibility or whatever, but they get excited that what that means for them in terms of a good activation is only going to benefit them, right? So
exactly, and everybody has to protect their IP, so we weren't able to specifically have like a large Gainbridge Super League logo around our activation, but we were able to have different elements of soccer in there. And then again, as we hosted Brianna Scurry and then other Gainbridge ambassadors, so we sponsor or have an ambassador on each of the Gainbridge Super League teams. So we brought a couple of them to the mini pitch, and they have on their home kit that they have for their Gainbridge Super League team. So we were able to have hints of the Gainbridge Super League within there, while again still tastefully doing it within our partnership with the Miami F1 Grand Prix.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah, on the flip side of that, and I'm not going to ask you to call anybody out or anything, but just in general, and it's a question I always like to ask people in your position. Are there things that you see, whether it's in properties who are pitching or properties you might currently be working with, where you're kind of like, boy, I wish this was something that the folks on the other side of the coin really did a better job of, or where there's some room for improvement?
Yeah, and I don't think what I'm about to say would probably be any earth-shattering news, but anytime our current partners, or if a company is pitching us, we love to kind of lean into big and creative ideas. Our leadership team at Gainbridge is always open to hearing and investigating creative ideas. When you're in the financial services category, you have, again, a lot of legacy companies that are out there. Our fans are fans of teams and leagues that we sponsor. They have a lot of marketing messaging coming at them all the time. So how can we think creatively that aligns with our sponsorship goals, but how can we think of a big idea that really allows us to step out there? And I think, again, over the last few years, Gainbridge has been recognized through SBJ and other mediums for, brand activation of the year, or being a finalist for sports sponsor of the year, because we like to lean in and think differently and creatively. And we hosted a partner summit this past January, where we had all of our partners come down to Miami, and we kind of encouraged them, and we gave them a little homework assignment: is come back to us with one creative big idea that we can work together on during the 2026 calendar year. So it was fun to really, don't think of money as an object. Again, we are happy to, work with our partners on these big ideas. So come back to us and let's work together on how we can really push the limits of what's possible in our partnerships. And so we got some really creative ideas, and a few of them, that's kind of how the soccer mini pitch at the Miami F1 Grand Prix kind of came to life. And so we're always open to new ideas. And again, it doesn't have to be something that's going to cost us, several hundred thousands or millions of dollars. It's okay, we're reimagining this community program that you guys aren't on, but it aligns with your goals. Let us tell you more about it. Or this is an idea that we've been doing together for a couple of years. Here's how we want to take it to the next level with you. So we love having those conversations, and we love when our partners come to us thinking proactively on how we could continue to grow our partnership.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that you host that summit. We know a lot of properties host sponsor summits, but I think it's even great when brands such as yours do it on the flip side as well. And that, again, the idea of creativity, creative ideas, so important. And actually, we have a question from Matt that maybe kind of leads into that or is tied to that. Basically, in terms of kind of what you consider when evaluating a new sponsorship opportunity, if you are kind of reviewing a pitch. One of the things, again, I advise properties to do is get creative with those ideas. Again, just not the menu of the inventory and the signage and the tickets and hospitality suites and all of that, but where can you really look at this brand and say this is be a creative way of kind of bringing a partnership to life? It sounds like maybe that's one thing you might look for. There are other kind of criteria that Gainbridge has for considering opportunities.
Yeah, I would say it's a mix of things. We're based in the United States. Speaking on Gainbridge specifically, we're based in the United States, so that's where we do all of our business. So that's where we kind of see most of our sponsorships happening. In terms of specific things we look for, I wouldn't say there's a specific focus. I think opportunities continue to have strong investment in women's sports is a big one. We always like to look at what are the amplification opportunities of a partnership, including, paid media or, just earned media opportunities, big creative ideas. And then also, is a new opportunity that you bring in to us, is it in a new league? Is it in a new area that Gainbridge currently doesn't invest in? I'm not saying we won't invest in opportunities where we currently are, but I think it's always great to look at other areas of sports and entertainment that we may not already be. So we don't have a specific checklist that we go through when evaluating opportunities, but I would say, what can help us get through the clutter? What can help us continue to drive an understanding in the marketplace of who Gainbridge is as a company and the products that we offer, again, through annuities. And then how can we, really either have strong investment in maybe a new area of opportunity in women's sports or, opportunities to amplify things that we're already doing. So I would say those are just kind of an initial lens, but we're always open to, new and creative opportunities that come our way.
That's so important, and I love to hear that there's not a specific checklist, right? Because that's limiting, and everything you're talking about today sounds like you all are taking a very smart approach to being open to these new kinds of things. And doesn't mean you're going to end up doing everything. Obviously, nobody's got unlimited budgets, but just being open to thinking about, hey, is this something that could work for us? So important to being successful. I have a couple of other things, and there are also a couple of audience questions that I'll get to, and please feel free to send some more in. But Stephen, just real quickly, I'd love to hear just a little bit more about the Gainbridge Super League. So just tell us, because again, there's so many exciting developments happening in women's sports, and this is one of them. And I want to make sure everybody who's with us today has a good understanding of what the league is, what it's all about, where it is. So just give us the elevator pitch, I guess, for that.
Yeah, no, really appreciate it. So the Gainbridge Super League is a Division I's professional women's soccer league that is a part of the USL. So for those that this may be your first time hearing about it, but you have the USL as kind of a parent company, and they have a men's and women's side. On the women's side, the Gainbridge Super League is the top women's professional league under the USL, and it is a direct rival to the NWSL. So I'm sure many have heard about that. So it's a direct kind of rival there. The Gainbridge Super League is going into its third year. Its second year being called the Gainbridge Super League, and its first year was called the USL Super League. There are currently 8 clubs around the country. And so we are really excited to be the naming rights partner for the league. And we've really leaned into helping to grow this league in its really early stage, and hopefully continuing to offer professional top level opportunities for really talented women's soccer players across the United States and also across the world. It has the Super League has a very strong international presence, and so hopefully you'll see several of its athletes playing in the upcoming 2027 Women's World Cup. And so I just want to call out one specific thing we've done with the Super League that I'm really proud of, and that I think really took collaboration from all parts of the Super League and also Gainbridge itself. Is we have helped the Gainbridge Super League launch its YouTube channel that now has, I think I looked just a few days ago, 110,000 subscribers in the last almost 8 months. And so we really leaned into storytelling opportunities with the Gainbridge Super League, specifically helping a league in its early stage continue to star build. So, having some recognizability of some of its players, I think will definitely help grow fan interest across the country, and specifically in each market that has a league or a team specifically. And so we helped launch a YouTube series, Beyond Success. And so it followed a player from about 5 of the teams and helped show this player in the light in its personal, in this person's or this lady's kind of personal side, and then also on the pitch. And so we know fans really love behind the scenes or getting to know more about some of its star players. So we really enjoy being able to do and highlight some of these great players across several of the Super League teams. And then we also did an episode on the Gainbridge Super League final, or the championship match between Lexington SC and Carolina Cent. And so each of those episodes has gotten over or close to 200,000 views. And so it's been a great partnership together to help grow this medium of digital content for the Super League, and one that hopefully will allow continued opportunities for storytelling. And we're excited for what this will look like going into the upcoming Gainbridge Super League season that starts on August 15th. So coming up here in a few weeks.
There you go. Well, that's really exciting. Yeah. Congratulations on the success of the YouTube series. That's wonderful. But, let me just ask, because I'm always interested when people make the switch. I mean, a lot of people in our business do, from kind of the property side to the brand side. You mentioned you worked with the Golden State Warriors, the Minnesota Vikings. What was there anything that was kind of a surprise to you when you kind of moved over onto the sponsor side of things, or anything that you've learned since you've been there that you kind of say, well, I wish I'd known that when I was representing these great teams?
Yeah, definitely a lot of learning on the team side, and really enjoyed my time there. You can see some of my memorabilia behind me from the Monster. Something I think that goes across both the team and brand side that I've found to be really important. We can specifically talk about the team side. When you're working with a property, really have relationships across all levels of the brand or sponsor that you're working with, not just your day-to-day that maybe a little more junior, but get to know the director, VP, CMO, president, CEO of the company, because as you may understand, people switch jobs all the time, and so you want to make sure that you have relationships across the company so that when somebody leaves, you still have a stronghold on the partnership, and kind of the learnings don't go with that person that left. It's still kind of throughout the company. So I think it's always important, and I'm not shy. I want the Gainbridge Super League and our other partners to have, of course, a strong relationship with me, but my manager, even other team members at my level on our sponsorship team, and of course, Mike and even our CEO as well, because that only makes the partnership better and stronger going forward. And so also, we've already touched on it, but anytime you can think proactively, sending in new ideas, or have you thought about this opportunity that you guys could do with us, or even, sending us articles of, things you're seeing in the marketplace that, maybe one of our competitors is doing. And so you want to make sure we're aware, because it could be something that, we can help influence our strategy going forward. So just continue deeper relationships between, the team and sponsor, and then continuing to just proactively think about your brand or sponsor, and any ways you can provide added value to your partner. Again, it doesn't always have to be financially, but I was thinking about you and saw this, or saw you guys did this at one of your other properties. So I thought that was really cool. You can enhance it or continue to up level it through these different ways. So those would be a couple of things that, if I was back on the team side, those would certainly be things that I would take along with me. And even on the brand side now, those are opportunities, when I get to meet with our partners. I want to meet people across the organization. So those are a couple of things that come to mind.
Those are great and very practical, which I always appreciate. Let me just follow up on the kind of the networking with other people in the organization. Any specific ideas on how people can do that? Somebody's like, yeah, I'd love to hang out and talk to the CMO, CEO. How would they kind of go about building some of those relationships beyond their day-to-day contact?
Yeah, I would say a couple of ways is, one, if an invitation to attend a team event that our partners hosting, not only should whether it's me be invited, but also making sure that there are some events that are maybe more for executive level individuals at companies. So this is C-level and higher opportunities that you're hosting. So I think those are always good. And then what I would always say is, if you're hosting a recap or some type of pitch, always making sure the right stakeholders are in the room that are going to need to have a voice within the company to get a deal across the line. So anytime that you can have all the key stakeholders, all the way up from executive level to the person that's maybe going to be your day-to-day contact and execute, having all of those people in the room. And also the same on the team side. If you're pitching, usually you like to match, the level of people in the room. You don't want to, necessarily have a CMO attending and, a coordinator, manager doing the pitch. You want to match, the level of seniority that's in the room. So if you're asking for a CMO to be in the pitch or in the meeting, make sure you're also bringing in your C-level executive. That is a part of kind of the strategy and the partnership as well. So I would say those are a few things that I've seen that have worked really
Yeah, no, that's great. Couple of folks have asked, are there any kind of trends, emerging sponsorship trends that you're kind of keeping an eye on that you think might have an impact on Gainbridge's sponsorships going forward?
Yeah, I would say an area that we currently aren't in, but I think has popped off, especially yesterday, is in the collegiate space. You see a lot of, JP Morgan Chase and SoFi with their jersey patch opportunities with Ohio State and Notre Dame. I'm not saying we're specifically at that level, but I would say the collegiate area overall, and getting down even to the player NIL opportunities, I would say those are areas that we've looked in and maybe one day we'll get more involved in. So I would say that is a big trend that we're following. And again, we have a great team at Gainbridge and Group 1001 that's great at storytelling. And so how can we, again, give fans that behind the scenes that I think a lot of people, even myself, like to see, those lifestyle content opportunities, those long form areas. So how can we do more of that? And I think that's been a great trend. And what we see on YouTube, then we can splice up and we can use it in broadcast, we can use it in arena, we can use it on our social and digital avenues as well. So it's not just something that's living in one spot. It's something that we can use year round in a lot of different mediums. So I would say those are kind of two areas that have caught our attention over the last year, and we'll see if we can find more opportunities to lean into those two.
Awesome. Okay, we made it almost 52 minutes without saying the words AI. But we have a question. So from Ryan, he's just wondering if you are using AI in any of your in any of the things that you're doing.
Yeah, I would say it's more on the back end. So we like to use AI at Group 1001 overall as a company, and not specifically only in sponsorships, but we've used it to help kind of generate new ideas. How can we amplify our strategy in different properties? I wouldn't say at the current moment you'll really see AI in the execution of our partnerships. You won't necessarily see an AI activation on site with Gainbridge, but we're certainly using it in the back end with our partners to help really hone in on our strategy or think of new ideas of how we can continue to up-level what we're already doing or think creatively for new opportunities with our partners.
Makes a lot of sense. So, Stephen, before I let you go, I always end my questions with something I call either myth to bust or fact to trust. So I'll ask you whether this following statement is a myth or a fact, or maybe somewhere in between. But the biggest sponsorship results come from the biggest sponsorship investments. Is that a myth or is that a fact?
It's my belief that is definitely a myth. From my perspective, I think it's most key for success of sponsorships to make sure you're aligning your sponsorship goals with the properties you're investing in and the assets that come with those investments. And here at Gainbridge, we don't have the largest budget necessarily for compared to other financial services companies or other competitors. But I think what we do really strongly is, again, going back to that term, sweating the assets, making sure that we are getting the most out of what we're paying for and making sure that we're using that as strategically as possible. And I think those results are showing again in the recognitions that we've gotten. And then also something I didn't, kind of tying back to one of the previous questions about how we measure success. More broadly, Gainbridge as a whole over the last few years has 30x its revenue. And so I can't say a specific number of that is contributed to sponsorships, but I would say the success of Gainbridge has a strong part of that has been through our sponsorships and the awareness of our business that we've been able to have through our strategic use of our partners. So from my perspective, again, answering the question, I would say a myth, and just, again, tie your sponsorship goals to the partners that you invest in and the assets that you invest in. And I think you'll see a strong return on investment through that.
Great. I would agree with that. And I don't think any of us here would need if you take full credit for that 30.
Yeah.
We'd love to see that from an industry perspective, right? But,
Most definitely.
Appreciate that. So, Steve, I can't thank you enough. This has been, super enlightening for me. I am already thinking, I teach a class in sponsorship here at Northwestern, and the Sponsor CX folks will let me take the recording of this. I'm going to use it in class this fall because I think this is just, so really great example of how to do things right. So I'm sure our audience got a lot out of this. I know I did. So thank you for being with us. Appreciate you. And hopefully we'll be able to continue the conversation somewhere down the road.
Look forward to it. Thanks again, Jim. And thanks to the Sponsor CX team for having me.
Great. And thank you all for joining us. And hopefully you'll join us. We've got some upcoming webinars that I'm excited about. So stay tuned to your emails and LinkedIn, and you'll be hearing more details on those coming up soon. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Okay. Take care.